What if the greatest love of your life never ended in a wedding, but in a prayer whispered across an ocean? What if a woman wrote letters for 70 years to a man she thought was gone? And what if, decades later, her niece found those letters and him? Welcome to Letters to the One Who Waited, a powerful Christian love story that spans continents, generations, and the kind of faith that refuses to let go. If you've ever asked God why love takes so long, if you've ever wondered if waiting is wasted, or if you've ever believed in a love that outlasts war, silence, and time itself, then this story is for you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if stories of legacy, love, and faith move you the way they move me. Now, let's begin where every real love story begins, with a letter. Shanghai, 1947. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Ecclesiastes 3, verse 11. The train screeched to a stop just outside the city limits, steam hissing like a warning. Evelyn Carter gripped the worn leather strap of her satchel tighter and stared out the soot-streaked window. Shanghai. Even through the gray mist, she could see remnants of a city once proud. Rooftops charred from bombing, walls crumbling under the weight of memory, families moving like shadows along the dirt roads. This wasn't the glittering eastern city she'd read about back in Georgia. This was war's aftermath, and this was exactly where God had sent her. She closed her eyes for a moment. Lord, strengthen my hands and guard my heart. Let them see you before they ever see me. Her prayer was whispered, but anchored in steel. The American Christian Medical Mission had warned her. Tensions were high. The communists and nationalists were clashing just beyond the city. Foreigners weren't welcomed everywhere. And a black woman like her, young, educated, unshakable, was bound to draw stares. But Evelyn wasn't here for applause. She was here for obedience. The orphanage clinic was smaller than she expected. Nestled behind the stone gates of an old Lutheran church, it stood barely 3 stories high. A long red cross, peeling at the edges, was painted above the front door. Inside, the air smelled of rice porridge, bleach, and old wooden floors. Children with wide, wary eyes peeked out from corners. Nurses bustled quietly. Most were local. One American doctor nodded curtly at her before returning to a stretcher, and that's when she saw him. He wasn't in uniform, not anymore. But Evelyn recognized the soldier in him instantly. He stood in the far back, helping a little boy wash his hands at a water basin. His sleeves were rolled to the elbows, revealing a faint scar trailing up his forearm. He was tall for a Chinese man, at least 6 feet, and lean, with sun-kissed skin and eyes like dark ink pools. His jaw was sharp, his presence quiet, but undeniable. When he turned and noticed her, their eyes met. Not curiosity, not suspicion, just recognition, as if something eternal had passed between them in a second. "Who is that?" she asked one of the nurses in Mandarin, carefully phrased. The nurse smiled. "Wei Jun. He served in the war, lost his unit, came back last year, hasn't spoken much since. But the children trust him, so we keep him close." Their first conversation wasn't verbal. It was a scrap of paper. She found it tucked under her teacup during a late-night inventory of supplies, scrawled in careful Mandarin. "What makes you believe your God still cares for places like this? Bud WJ." She stared at it for a long moment, then flipped the page over. Her answer came in English, written with a firm hand, because even ruins can grow roses. Ecclesiastes 3:11. E.C. She left it by the window. The next day, she found a peach blossom pressed into her notebook. They didn't rush toward each other. It was never that kind of love. It was something deeper, like soil slowly softening after winter. Each day, they worked side by side, bandaging bruised children, repairing shelves, cooking rice porridge for orphans. She taught him how to say mercy in English. He taught her how to write grace in Mandarin. They prayed in different languages, but the Spirit translated it all. One rainy evening, as monsoon winds howled through the corridors, the lights flickered out. Evelyn lit a lantern and found Wei Jun sitting on the chapel floor, tracing the edge of a hymn book. "I don't think God listens to me," he said in halting English. "Not after what I've seen. What I've done." She knelt beside him and gently touched his shoulder. "He does," she said. "Even if all you can do is groan, he hears. Even if all you have left is silence, he's still listening." Wei Jun looked at her. "I used to believe that, before the war." Evelyn leaned closer, her voice like honey and thunder all at once. "Then maybe he brought me here, to remind you." They shared no kiss, no declarations. But those few months with him were beautiful. But one night, Wei Jun handed her a small scrap of fabric folded like origami. Inside, embroidered in tiny stitches, "Wait for me." But war again came too soon. Rumors swirled of communist armies pushing closer to the city. Government orders were posted overnight. All former soldiers were being recalled. Some to fight, some for interrogation. Wei Jun's name was on the list. "I will come back," he told her, fingers trembling as they held hers. Evelyn shook her head, hot tears threatening to spill. "Don't promise things you can't keep." "I can keep this," he whispered. "I will write. Every week. I swear it." She handed him a small new Bible. Inside, she had underlined one verse in red. "He has made everything beautiful in its time." He kissed the page. Then he was gone. Days passed, then weeks, then silence. Evelyn waited under the magnolia tree behind the orphanage every Thursday. A letter never came. A whisper never reached her. Shanghai burned again, and Wei Jun did not return. Georgia, United States, 1950s to 1970s. Let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Galatians 6 verse 9. The telegram came in the spring of 1950, plain, unapologetic. "Presumed dead in the conflict, no remains recovered. We regret to inform you." Evelyn Carter read the line once, then twice. Her eyes didn't water. Her lips didn't tremble. She simply folded the paper in half, placed it on the kitchen counter, and poured herself a cup of tea. Her hand didn't stop shaking for hours. "I'm sorry, baby," her mother whispered that night, rubbing her back as Evelyn lay curled on her childhood bed. "Sometimes life don't turn out like the prayers we pray." "I don't believe that," Evelyn said quietly. "I believe God heard me. I just don't understand the answer yet." For the first few months, she waited anyway. Every Sunday afternoon, she checked the mailbox. Each time the metal door creaked open with nothing inside, she whispered, "Lord, your will, not mine." And every time, she forced herself to smile at the neighbors, to lead the Wednesday night Bible study, to refill the communion trays, to help the young mothers at church with their screaming toddlers and tired marriages. But grief has a strange way of finding its voice in silence. So Evelyn began to write. The first letter was dated July 3, 1950. The envelope remained unsealed. "Dear Wei Jun, they said you're gone, but I don't believe them. I don't think I ever will. Even if the world forgets your name, I won't. Not while I have breath. So I'll write. As long as my hands can hold a pen, I'll write." Today it rained. Thunder rolling like heaven was remembering something it didn't want to forget. I thought of the orphanage roof, the way it leaked in the corner. I thought of you patching it with borrowed nails and holy patience. You smiled at me that day, not like a man who had peace, but like one who had chosen it anyway. I still believe God is doing something beautiful with all this, even the ache. I love you. Still, Evelyn. She didn't stop writing. Every month, another letter. Some only a page long. Others, nearly essays, prayers, verses, memories, updates. I've joined the county clinic, serving veterans and field workers. It's hard but good work. I think you'd like my new supervisor. She reminds me of Sister Lan back in Shanghai. Isaiah 43 verse 2 came to me today. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. I pray God was with you that night. I pray you weren't alone. I still leave a candle by the window on Thursdays. That was the day you said you'd write. Her parents didn't understand. Evelyn, honey, her father said one evening gently, he's not coming back. You're still young. There's good men in this town. Kind, God-fearing. You deserve a family, a life. She smiled kindly, tucking her latest letter into a fabric-bound box. I have a life, Daddy. A full one. And I have love, too. It just lives in a different chapter. Suitors came and went. A deacon from North Carolina. A young widower with 3 daughters. A medical rep who quoted Psalm 37, but looked at her like a trophy, not a soul. Each time she listened with grace, declined with peace, and when her niece, Naomi, just a curious little girl with hair full of barrettes and eyes full of questions, once asked her plainly, "Why didn't you ever marry Auntie Eve?" Evelyn laughed softly and replied, "It's not about him anymore, baby. I just promise God I keep loving the way Jesus does, through silence, through waiting, through whatever comes." Years passed like pages turning slowly in a quiet room. She built a small life, not loud, but luminous. She led women's ministries in poor neighborhoods. She translated Bible tracts into Mandarin just in case. She cooked for the homeless every first Sunday. She kept her garden full of magnolias, just like the one behind the orphanage. And every Thursday, she still lit a candle by the window. In the 1970s, her health began to fail. Her once strong hands trembled slightly, but she still wrote. Her last letter was written with trembling fingers, a warm blanket around her shoulders, and a soft worship song humming from the radio. Dear Wei Jun, if you're with the Lord, then I know I'll see you again. If you're still walking this earth, then I want you to know I never stopped loving you, not because I'm perfect, but because the God we both met under candlelight and chaos, He held us both, even in silence. This isn't just a letter anymore. It's a prayer. Lord, let this love not die with me. Let it bring someone else back to you. Evelyn. She folded the letter, kissed the corner of the page, and tucked it into the box. Then she locked the box and slid it to the back of her bedroom closet. She never mentioned it again. But when Naomi, now a teenager, visited one Sunday afternoon and read aloud from Ecclesiastes 3, Evelyn closed her eyes and smiled. "Everything beautiful in its time," she whispered. "Everything." Atlanta, Georgia, present day. Ask the former generation and find out what their ancestors learned. Job 8, verse 8. The funeral was held on a Tuesday. The sun was out, too bright for the mood. Naomi Green stood under a black umbrella, mascara waterproof but still streaking. The pastor's voice blurred somewhere behind her, quoting familiar scriptures she barely heard. Naomi kept her sunglasses on the entire time, not because she didn't want people to see her cry, but because she didn't cry. Not really, not yet. "I still can't believe she's gone," her cousin whispered beside her. Afterward, back at the house, people buzzed around her like bees in morning suits, sweet potato pie in one hand, folded napkin in the other. Everyone had a story about Evelyn. She led my mama to Christ in 72. She paid my rent in secret when Daddy left. She prayed for my son when he was in jail. Naomi smiled politely. She nodded. But inside, something gnawed at her. She knew Evelyn as Aunt. She didn't know Evelyn as this, as a woman who had apparently carried the entire neighborhood on her back while humming hymns and passing out cornbread. And yet Naomi had never seen her flinch, never seen her desperate, never heard her complain about love or loneliness. She'd never even seen her date. That night, when everyone had left and the last casserole dish was packed away, Naomi went upstairs. She opened Evelyn's bedroom closet. She wasn't sure what she was looking for. Maybe her old Bible, maybe some photos for the memorial slideshow, maybe something personal. What she found instead was a wooden box, not a large one, but beautifully carved, tucked behind a stack of folded quilts. She hesitated for a moment, then opened it. Inside, over 70 unsent letters, tied neatly in faded red ribbon. A worn Chinese Bible, annotated in 2 languages. A sepia-toned photo of Evelyn in Shanghai, standing beneath a lantern-lit rooftop garden, smiling. Not a polite Southern church smile, but radiant. Naomi's fingers trembled as she picked up the top letter. The paper had yellowed. The ink bled slightly from age. The handwriting was unmistakably Evelyn's, elegant and strong even in frailty. My dearest Wei Jun, it's been 6 months since I heard from you. The world says you're dead, but I don't believe them. I don't know if I'll ever see you again. But if you are still alive, wait for me at the church by the river. I will find you there, whether on earth or in heaven. All my love, Evelyn. Naomi's heart slammed into her ribs. Wei Jun, her aunt had a man, and not just any man. Someone she loved. For decades, she opened another, then another, and another. Each letter unraveled a love story Naomi never knew existed. A history of handwritten devotion, scripture intertwined with war memories, reports of Evelyn's life in America, clinic updates, Bible verses, prayers, questions she sent into the silence, and not a single one was mailed. By 3:17 a.m., Naomi sat on the floor, legs crossed, letters scattered around her like fallen autumn leaves. Her eyes burned, so did her heart. This can't be real, she whispered into the silence. But it was. The next morning, she sat in the breakfast nook, clutching a mug of bitter tea she hadn't touched. Her mother sat across from her, tired but composed. You knew about this? Naomi asked. Her mother blinked. About Wei Jun? Naomi nodded slowly. Her mother exhaled. Not the details. I just knew. She once loved someone. She never talked much, but she told me once. I left my heart in a land I couldn't return to. Naomi stared at the letters again. She waited. Her whole life. Her mother touched her hand gently, but she didn't waste it. She waited on God while living with it. Her love wasn't paused. It was poured out. Later that day, Naomi sat on the porch, reading through Evelyn's Chinese Bible. Verses were underlined in both Mandarin and English. Some circled, some starred, most tagged with dates. She paused on one verse. Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it again after many days. Ecclesiastes 11:1. And below it, Evelyn had written, still waiting, still trusting, still his. That night, Naomi couldn't sleep. She kept asking questions that had no easy answers. Why would someone love like that and never give up? Why would God let her wait forever? Was Evelyn's prayer wasted? Was her love pointless? What kind of God doesn't tie up loose ends? Or what if he already had? By morning, Naomi had made her decision. She pulled out her laptop, booked a flight, and whispered aloud, like a vow. Aunt Eve, if you were brave enough to wait 70 years, The least I can do is finish the journey for you." She folded the letters gently into her carry-on. Then she added the photo and Evelyn's Chinese Bible. She was going to Shanghai to return the letters, to find Wei Jun, or at least to say goodbye in the church by the river. Shanghai, present day. The Lord is good to those who wait for him, to the soul who seeks him. Lamentations 3 verse 25. Shanghai was louder than Naomi expected. Not just city noise loud, but alive in a way that made her ache. Like the whole city was moving without her. Skyscrapers stretched into the sky like ambition. The lights blinked like restless thoughts, and the air buzzed with Mandarin, sirens, scooter engines, and street vendors, all trying to survive the same Tuesday. Naomi tugged her scarf tighter around her neck. Her boots clacked against the wet pavement as she made her way through a crowded intersection, dragging her suitcase behind her. She hadn't packed much, just Evelyn's letters, the photo, and the worn Chinese Bible wrapped carefully in linen. No one noticed her. She was used to that. Her Mandarin was functional, thanks to college electives and a brief obsession with language learning apps. But not enough. Not enough to understand the speeding cab driver who dropped her off at the wrong hotel. Not enough to tell the lady at the train kiosk she needed help. Not enough to feel home, even for a moment. And she didn't want to admit it. But she was beginning to feel foolish. What kind of love waits 70 years? And what kind of niece flies across the world looking for a ghost? The map was marked clearly. An old riverside church. The one mentioned in Evelyn's letter. The one she had prayed about, written about, circled in her Bible like a promise she was willing to wait her life for. Naomi found it on her third day. Tucked between a tea house and a minimalist art gallery on a narrow street near the Suzhou Creek, the building had been partially restored. The outer brick still bore wounds, charred edges, crumbling corners, but the windows were new, the steeple repaired. A red cross gleamed faintly above the arched doorway. She stood at the gate, unsure if her legs would carry her any further. A sign hung in both English and Mandarin, House of Hope, open Thursdays for prayer and remembrance. She checked her phone. Thursday, of course. Inside, the church was nearly empty. The air was thick with incense and quiet. A few women lit candles near the front. A man sat near the back, head bowed, thumbing through prayer beads. And then, her eyes landed on an old man near the altar. He was kneeling, barely. One hand clutched the edge of the wooden pew. The other gently struck a match against the stone wall to light a candle. His fingers trembled, but he moved with care, reverence, as if this wasn't routine, as if this was sacred. He placed the candle on the stone slab beneath the cross. Then he sat down in the front pew, staring forward, not moving, not blinking, just waiting. Naomi stepped slowly down the aisle, heart beating so loudly it echoed in her ears. She stopped halfway, unsure if it was him, but then he turned. Their eyes met, and Naomi knew this was him. This was Wei Jun, older now, a weathered face mapped with wrinkles, hair silver, but eyes still dark, still alert, still alive. He looked at her hands, at the bundle of yellowed envelopes clutched to her chest, and something broke behind his eyes. He stood slowly, shakily, and whispered, in perfect English, "Evelyn?" Naomi shook her head. Her voice cracked. "Yes, I'm her niece. My name's Naomi." A silence, thick as prayer. She walked the rest of the way and sat beside him in the front pew. Wei Jun's eyes never left her hands. "She wrote to me?" he asked. Naomi nodded. She handed him the first letter, then the second, then the rest, and then finally Evelyn's final prayer, folded delicately, still scented faintly of lavender and old paper. Wei Jun stared at them. His hands trembled as he opened the top one. Then his chest shook, first with breath, then with tears. Not loud, not dramatic, but deep, soul-stretching tears that came from decades of silence now unraveling all at once. "She never stopped loving you," Naomi said quietly. "She never even looked at another man." Wei Jun pressed the paper to his lips. "Neither did I." They sat there, shoulder to shoulder, as the candlelight flickered across the chapel walls. Wei Jun reached into the satchel beside him and pulled out something wrapped in faded cloth. Inside, a battered military Bible. He opened it slowly. Inside were letters of his own, some short, some long, all addressed the same way: Evelyn, beloved of my soul. He looked at Naomi, his voice shaking. "I thought she had died. There were riots in the city. I saw a report. I saw her name, but it must have been another woman, or a lie." "You never tried to find her?" Naomi asked gently. "I had no way. I wasn't permitted to leave, and when the walls of the world finally opened again, I was already old. I came here instead. Every Thursday, I lit a candle. I asked God to tell her. I was waiting." Naomi couldn't stop her tears now. "She asked the same of God," she said. "She asked God to let her love bring someone back to him." Wei Jun looked at her, eyes shining. "Did it?" Naomi hesitated, then nodded, slowly. "Yes, he did." Outside, the city moved on, fast and chaotic. But inside that little church, two strangers connected by one woman's unrelenting faith sat in stillness. A box of letters between them, a war-torn Bible open, a love not lost, but planted. And after 70 years, it had finally bloomed. Shanghai. Then home. Present day. Those who sow with tears will reap with songs of joy. Psalm 126, verse 5. Wei Jun sat beneath the stained glass window of the riverside church, sunlight pooling gently at his feet. Naomi sat beside him once more, the wooden box on the pew between them. His fingers shook as he untied the faded ribbon. The lid opened with a quiet creak, like a story stirring after years of silence. One by one, he took the letters out. He read them aloud, slowly, tenderly, as if speaking to her again might keep her close a little longer. "Dear Wei Jun, I hope you're warm tonight. I made soup for the clinic volunteers, but I burned the rice. Again. You used to tease me about that. I can still hear you laughing." Wei Jun smiled through tears, his voice unsteady. "She always added too much salt." Naomi chuckled gently, her eyes glistening. "She said you never told her. You just ate it like it was perfect." "It was," he said softly, "because she made it." He kept reading. Some letters were full of scripture, Evelyn's quiet sermons in ink. Others were brief, a single sentence, a single prayer, a single breath captured on paper. But all of them carried the same heartbeat: hope, faith, enduring love. When he reached the final one, his hand stilled. The ink was faded, the corners curled, but he held it like something holy. He read the last paragraph aloud, his voice breaking on every syllable. "Let this love not die with me. Let it bring someone else back to you, Lord." Wei Jun lowered the page, eyes brimming. He looked at Naomi, not as a stranger, but as a living answer. "I thought she was gone," he said, voice cracking. "But God, He sent you instead." Naomi wiped her cheeks with trembling fingers. "She brought me back to Him too." They prayed together then. Not eloquent words, just quiet gratitude, a soldier in his final years. a niece in her beginning years, joined by one woman's faith across generations, languages, and oceans. 2 days later, Naomi stood in the church garden, suitcase in hand. Wei Jun handed her the Chinese Bible Evelyn had once given him. "I want you to have it," he said. Naomi hesitated. "But it's yours." "It was hers," he replied with a gentle smile. "And she's given it to both of us." As her plane lifted into the sky above Shanghai, Naomi opened her journal. She wrote, "Dear Lord, you waited for me longer than I even realized. I see that now. I'm sorry I ran. I'm sorry I let the noise of the world drown out your voice. But I'm listening again. I don't know what you're doing. I don't even know what to ask for. But I want to love like she did. I want to trust like she did. I want to wait with joy, not frustration. So here I am, writing again, not to someone lost, but to the one who found me. With all my love, Naomi." 6 months later, Naomi stood at the front of her church in Atlanta, speaking at the annual women's conference. The theme was faith that waits. She spoke with warmth and quiet conviction, wearing a pendant that held Evelyn's photo inside, a small circle of legacy close to her heart. Afterward, a familiar face approached her. He had once been just Michael, a fellow volunteer at a food pantry she helped organize years ago. She'd never looked at him twice. He wasn't flashy, just kind and faithful. He smiled now, eyes soft. "That was something, Naomi." "Thanks," she said, surprised by how deeply she meant it. "I've been reading the Book of Ruth lately," he added gently. "Waiting doesn't mean wasted time, right?" She met his eyes and smiled. "No," she said, "not anymore." That night, Naomi sat by her window, tea steaming beside her, the Chinese Bible open across her lap. She began a new letter, this one not to Wei Jun, to a future husband, but to the God who had never stopped writing love into her story. "Dear Heavenly Father, you've made everything beautiful in your time. Thank you for letting me be part of their story, and thank you for writing a new one in me. I won't rush what you're doing. I'll wait well. I'll wait with you. Amen." 2 years later, hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a longing fulfilled is a tree of life. Proverbs 13:12. The nurse who entered the room didn't rush. There was no need to. The man in the bed was already at peace. Wei Jun lay on crisp white sheets in a modest elder care home on the outskirts of Hangzhou. His breathing was quiet, gentle, almost like the sea before dawn. His hands were folded over his chest. In them, a photo of Evelyn Carter, creased, soft-edged, well-loved, and beneath it, a slip of paper with the final prayer she had written. "Let this love not die with me. Let it bring someone else back to you, Lord." The candle on his nightstand had gone out on its own, but the room still felt lit. His funeral was simple. Naomi flew in and stood beside the only 2 other mourners, an elderly caretaker from the church and a young seminary student Wei Jun had mentored late in life. They buried him beneath a ginkgo tree, its yellow leaves fluttering down like gold dust from heaven. Naomi laid a single magnolia flower at the base. The wind caught her scarf as she whispered, "Tell her I came. Tell her I brought the letters." Atlanta, present day. Naomi's days were full now, but full in a different way than before. She still worked part-time in digital strategy, more selectively now, but her heart lived elsewhere. Most mornings began at the Table of Grace, a women's ministry and community center she'd helped launch after her return from Shanghai. The ministry focused on healing, emotional, spiritual, generational. Women of all backgrounds walked through those doors. Heartbroken daughters, exhausted mothers, divorced warriors, lonely wives, and every single one of them was met with love. In the quietest corner of the prayer room hung a glass frame. Inside, a single letter from 1956, the one Evelyn had written when she nearly stopped hoping. "Lord, I don't understand the silence, but I trust that you're still writing something beautiful." Below it, in painted gold script, glowed the verse that had come alive in every part of their story. "Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a longing fulfilled is a tree of life." Proverbs 13, verse 12. Some nights Naomi stayed late, not because she had to, but because peace had become something she chose to linger in. One such evening, long after the women had left and the building lights were dim, she stepped outside into the garden behind the center. A magnolia tree stood tall in the middle of the yard. She had planted it the year after Wei Jun's passing. Soil turned by hand, roots watered with tears. Now it bloomed strong, bright, white, holy. She sat beneath it with her journal, leather bound, corners fraying, Evelyn's pendant resting against her chest. She opened to a blank page. The cicadas sang like a hymn somewhere in the trees. Naomi placed pen to paper and began to write. Love isn't always fast, but it is always worth it when it's from God. Some stories bloom in days, others take a lifetime, but all of them, every letter, every pause, every prayer, are known to God. And in His hands, nothing is ever lost, not even love. The end.